that persuasion is one of the most commonly used communication techniques we have. And yet it's gotten kind of a little bit of a dirty reputation because it's often viewed as manipulative or trickery, and it's not at all. Persuasion should never be used to get somebody to do something that they wouldn't normally do, but I do think that we can package language and suggestions and even commerce to everyone's benefit, like the rotary test, beneficial to all concerned. So I need you to take the Michelangelo Caruso pledge. Would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, and then your name, promise never to use my powers for evil. That's it. The idea here is that if I teach you some tricks about psychology, that you'll never use them against somebody. How many of you are... Oh, by the way, there's a little icon down below. Do you see where it says reactions? If you click reactions in the interface, the Zoom interface, you see that little thumbs up. Would you all click it for me as a little test so I know that you know where it's at? Very good. Thank you very much. Thumbs up. So if I say something that resonates with you or something that you agree with, you can give me the thumbs up. You'll notice there is no thumbs down icon. And there's a reason for that, everybody. Yeah. How many of you are in sales of any kind? Thumbs up, either your real thumb or you can just click the thumb if you're in sales. And how many might be in leadership in any capacity? Thumbs up if you're in leadership. Okay, quite a few. And how many of you are parents? Maybe you have some young ones at home. Because we know that you need to use persuasion with the children sometimes. Now, I'm really good at what I do, but this advice does not work with kids. You're on your own with that, okay? I'm just kidding. This is human psychology, and psychology is supposed to work with everybody. If it doesn't work on your kids, it's your fault. So I want to talk about this idea of persuasion and how it works and why it's okay to use it. I like to use persuasion in an educational sense, and a lot of times I'm using entertaining persuasion as well, as you've already picked up on, I'm sure. So when I say educational, it means if I'm asking you to do something, there are only a few reasons that you wouldn't do it. Number one, you don't care for me. Number two, you don't care for what I'm asking you to do. Or perhaps number three, you don't understand the benefits of doing what I'm asking you to do, because what I ask you to do would be beneficial for you. And so I go to work right away on the educational component. I mean, think about getting people to join Rotary, for example. You might invite somebody to join Rotary, and then you go to work persuading them, but they keep saying no. Are they saying no because Rotary is not a good idea? Of course not. Rotary's been around since 1905. Are they saying no because there's a bunch of crappy people in your club? Of course not. There are excellent people in your club, and you do great work. They're saying no because they don't know enough about the organization. They don't know enough about the benefits of joining Rotary. They certainly might not know enough about the value proposition. Value prop. Please write that down. It's one of the most important ingredients when you're trying to be influential with persuasion. If people don't understand the benefit of doing what you ask them to do, they're never going to sign up for whatever it is that you want. So everybody is, there are probably some cynical people on the call, and cynical, skeptical people, they always go like this. They always cross their arms and they say, well, I don't really need this. I don't really need to do this. But here's what you need to know. Everyone else is using persuasion. The Kiwanians are using persuasion. The Knights of Columbus are using persuasion. The Chamber of Commerce is using persuasion. All advertisers and marketers are using persuasion. During the election, the politicians were most certainly using persuasion. And so everybody's using persuasion except you. So think about that as you try to market your goods and services, or grow your club, or get people to join your church, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I'm a big fan of this thing called psychology. Thumbs up if you had some psychology in high school or college. You know a little bit about the subject. Okay, cool. So you're going to be a good resource for me tonight. I want to give you a quick axiom, AXIOM, from the world of psychology, and it works like a charm. I'm going to tell you what it is, but then I'm going to tell you how not to use it, okay? If you remember nothing else about what I say tonight, please remember this. Ready? People want what they cannot have. Would you please write that down? People want what they cannot have. It's a very simple premise, and I never want you to trick anybody. But I'm going to show you a couple of ways it works in my business like crazy. And I never lie, I never fib, I never manipulate anybody. I am completely ethical. You know, I could pass the Rotary Code of Conduct any day of the year, right? But I will tell you something. As a keynote speaker, when people call me and they say, well, we've heard really good things about you, Michael. I want to get you to do my keynote, and it's on June 15th, and it's at, this time of the day, and we really like you, and we already know we want to get you. Can you do the keynote? And I say, well, before we do anything, I need to check my calendar to see if I'm available. And I go to my calendar, and I'm a busy guy. I've been doing this for 20 years. And I go to my calendar on June 15th, and what do you think I see? Somebody's already called me for June 15th. And I tell the person, it looks like I may already be spoken for on June 15th. It's the complete truth. That's what it says on my calendar. And this person starts doing somersaults to get me freed up so I can speak to their group. Now that they know I might not be available, they're even more interested in having me speak. Thumbs up if you can understand how this works. They want me to speak on June 15th. I tell them I might not be available. They start doing somersaults to impress me and get me to speak at their event. This is true in all kinds of conditions. You've ever been at the store and you go to get something that's on sale and you get there and there's nothing on the shelves. Think toilet paper, during the pandemic. And if you don't have any toilet paper, you really want it. So you always want what you cannot have, and you will do whatever you can to get it. You will pay more for that toilet paper if it's unavailable. And by the way, the retailers know this, and this is called price gouging, which I never want you to get involved with. But think about this now in terms of Rotary. If your club has not been growing steadily every year for the last 5 years, when someone's getting ready to join your club, you're really ready for that new member. I mean, you'd accept just about anybody, wouldn't you? You'd accept somebody who could fog a mirror just to get them into the club. And you're honest about that. And you tell them, boy, that's fantastic, because nobody's joined our club in 2 years. We'd really be glad to have you join. And that's the truth. But is that the kind of thing that you want to say to the people? What's another version of the truth? Another version of the truth is, we don't just want anybody to join the club. We're looking for particular types of people to join the club. Is that true? Thumbs up if it's true. But I'm already taking a different approach, aren't I? We're looking for certain types of people to join the club because we want to make sure that if you join our club, that you're a good fit. Would it be okay if I ask you a few questions about yourself so that I can learn that you're a good fit for the club, and then I can recommend you to the club? So essentially what I've done is I've taken this transaction, this sale, if you will, that was in high gear, and I've slowed it down. It's almost like the opposite of persuasion, right? Because I want to make sure you're a good fit. But what does the other person think when you start to do this? They start to think to themselves, I wonder if this club will have me. I wonder if I am a good fit. I wonder if I'll answer these questions correctly. And they're just happy to get into this routine with you. And so it's a fantastic way to slow things down and help them understand that there's a different kind of persuasion going on here. These different types of axioms are called cognitive biases, and they were discovered by two gentlemen. One's named Tversky, and the other one's name is Kahneman. You don't have to worry about the spelling, but these two gentlemen won Nobel Prizes for their work of the cognitive biases. I'm going to give you 3 more examples of cognitive bias, just so you start to understand. You can just Google it. There's about 150 of them total, right? So if I tell you the cognitive biases, I'll give you 3 more examples. You'll start to think like somebody who's doing good quality persuasion. There's a cognitive bias called confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is that you're so sure you're right, you stop considering that you might be wrong. You know, this person is so perfect for the club, I don't actually have to interview him. Let's just get him in the club right away. And then you've skipped some important steps. And what happens? The person stays in the club for a little while and then leaves. It wasn't a good fit. You didn't make sure. So confirmation bias is you're so sure you're right, you stop thinking about the possibility you could be wrong. Not a good idea. You can get more about this in a Google search. A second confirmation bias I want to explain to you is called optimism bias. So Ginger's the current president. Is our future president on the call right now? Next year's president? Who is it?
Todd.
It's me. I'm on the call.
Oh, sorry. First name?
Todd.
Okay, Todd. Welcome. Congratulations on being a president-elect. How you feeling?
A little scared.
Well, you do great. I have a saying, Todd, that Rotary never asks you to do something that you're not capable of doing. But here's an interesting thing about optimism bias, Todd. If you think that you're going to be a great president and that you don't actually have to try, you're going to try to phone it in. And that will be a mistake because, of course, you do need to try. Optimism bias says that and I'm not saying Todd feels this way, but, I know so much about this and I'm such a better quality person. People have arrogance sometimes. I'm sure Todd doesn't. But people think, I could just phone this in and we can be successful. That's optimism bias. And Todd could also be suffering from pessimism bias, which is, this club is almost impossible to manage. I've heard it from the best people in the club. I'll serve as president, but there's really nothing I can do to grow membership or raise money next year. By the way, there's a pandemic. And so what would happen is pessimism bias would click in, which is another form of psychology that would actually work against the future president of this club or any club. I'm sure Todd doesn't have any of those things. But these are examples of psychology that could hinder an incoming president or anybody. I just took a call today because I do sales coaching. I took a call from a guy named Steve. He texted me last night. I was at the grocery store in the pickle aisle. And his text comes through and he sent me a photo of a saying that he put on his bulletin board. It's been there since June when he did sales training with me. And I must have got inside his head a little bit, psychology, right? Because he was thinking of me last night. He sent me this photo. He says, I still think about what you told me in June of last year. And I said, fantastic. I'm in the pickle aisle texting him back. How are you doing? He says, great. He says, I broke my sales record for this year. I reached all my goals early, and it's only my first year on the job. And I said, wow, congratulations, man. Let's jump on a call today and talk about that. We got on a call today, and he was telling me how he used those techniques. He's using psychology. He's using the things I showed him back in June to bust all of his numbers for this year. So I was very proud of him, very happy for him. So this stuff absolutely works, everybody. When I do sales training, I teach people something called the reverse presentation. And I think it's really good in psychology. I gave you a little flavor of this a minute ago, but I'm going to break it down for you. So for those of you that are in sales, I'm going to show you a way that you can use psychology to get all your numbers up, even during a pandemic. Again, thumbs up if you do sales. I want to take a quick look at our two screens. Thank you very much. Thank you. Taking a look. Okay. Thank you, Jane. So thank you, Keith. So here's the deal, guys. When it's time to do your sales presentation, let's say it's, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sales presentation's for 2 o'clock, you're meeting on Zoom or in person, it doesn't matter. And because the clock is running, you do a little bit of small talk to get the program going, but then you want to get into your slide presentation right away because you have 56 slides and the meeting's only an hour. So you got to get going, right? You got to start clicking. And this is I think the wrong way to do it because this is you talking all the time. And I talk about something called the reverse presentation, which actually has you speaking first, but only to ask the other person some questions. So the reverse presentation says that you're asking key questions that gets the other person to present to you first. So if the meeting's an hour, Keith, you're going to get the other person to talk for the first 15 minutes, a lot longer than normal. And they're going to answer key questions from you like, how are things going? What kind of pain are they in? How is their vendor working out for them? In particular, how might the vendor be letting them down? What could be better for them in the new year? These kinds of questions. And they take time to answer, everybody. And the whole time this is happening, Keith is writing down the answers to these questions, right? So that when it's time for him to give his presentation, he folds in everything they said in his presentation. So let me break this down for you guys. In the first method of selling, the salesperson says whatever's going to be in the PowerPoint presentation. It's whatever they guessed the person wants to hear. But in the second persuasive version, he's using the customer's or the prospect's language when he presents. And how does he know what to do? Because the prospect has presented to him first. So it's almost counterintuitive that when you're most persuasive, it's not because you are talking, it's because you let the other person talk first, right? And it's the same thing when you're recruiting people to Rotary. Stop yapping about your great club and ask the person, what do you like to do for fun? Do you like to travel? If they say yes, you think about that. You keep it in the memory bank, because later you're going to tell them about one of Rotary's 5 avenues of service, which is international. That involves travel. They're going to be warm to that. If they say they like to give back, well, do you like working with youth? They say yes. Okay, great. You keep that in mind. And later you'll tell them about RILA and Interact and Rotaract. But you'd never know they were interested in that stuff if you didn't ask them first. And that's how the reverse presentation works. Questions? Let's make it interactive. Tell me what's on your mind and what I can help.